The night was cold and wet. Rain fell from the dark sky, mixing with oil and dirt on the metal ground. Neon lights blinked above the narrow spaceport alleys. Casting purple and green colors on broken walls, the city was loud in the distance. But here, in this forgotten corner, silence ruled. Only the sound of dripping water and her quiet breaths could be heard. She stood against a rusted wall, arms wrapped around her thin body. Her clothes were torn. Her skin bruised, her eyes tired. She looked young, maybe 20, maybe younger. No one really knew her age, not even her. She was alien, her skin light, blue with silver lines glowing softly across her neck and arms. Her hair was silver white, tangled and dirty, falling past her shoulders, her name. She had no name, not anymore. She was nothing here, not a citizen, not a worker, not a person with rights. She was just a body in the street, and tonight she had made a decision. A choice she never wanted to make. She would offer herself to anyone who would give her one night of safety, one night of warmth, food, and sleep. Even if it cost her everything. Many humans walked by. Some looked at her, then turned away. One old man laughed and tossed a credit chip at her feet. Another whispered something rude before disappearing into the shadows. She didn't respond. Didn't bend down for the chip. She waited, hoping for someone, anyone, kind enough to take her offer. Then she saw him, a human man, walking slowly, head down, hands in his pockets. He looked tired, maybe from work, maybe from life. His coat was thick and dusty. His boots old but strong. He didn't look dangerous. He didn't look cruel. As he passed her, she stepped in front of him. He stopped, eyes meeting hers. She opened her cloak slightly, just enough to make her offer clear. One night, she said softly, no credits, just ... Let me stay. The man frowned. He didn't look at her body, he looked at her face. Are you in danger? He asked, voice calm, not mocking, not cruel. She didn't know how to answer, so she nodded. Yes. She was always in danger. He looked around the alley, then back at her. Come with me, he said quietly. You shouldn't be out here. She blinked, surprised. No credits. She asked, confused. No, he replied. I don't pay for people. She followed him, unsure why. Maybe she was too tired to think. Maybe his voice felt safe. They walked through empty alleys, past locked doors and trash bins. Finally, they reached an old metal building. He climbed the stairs, then opened a small door. Inside was a tiny room, warm and dry. The lights were soft, and the air smelled like old tea and clean soap. He handed her a towel and pointed to the washroom. You can clean up, he said. I'll make you something to drink. She hesitated, then nodded. The water was cold, but clean. She washed the dirt from her skin, combed her fingers through her tangled hair. When she came out, he had placed a steaming cup on the table. She sniffed it, sweet and thick, and drank it in one long sip. Her body warmed instantly. Tears filled her eyes. But she wiped them away quickly. He sat on the floor, pulling out an old blanket. You can take the bed, he said. I'll be fine here. She stared at him, confused. You don't want ... anything? She asked slowly. He shook his head. No. He said simply, just rest. She curled up on the bed, the blanket soft and warm around her. Her eyes stayed open for a while, watching him. He didn't move toward her. Didn't stare. He just laid back, closed his eyes, and breathed calmly. Soon, she felt sleep pulling her down. Her body relaxed for the first time in weeks. In the middle of the night, she woke up. The room was quiet. She sat up and looked around. He was still there, sleeping, peaceful. She got up, walked to the door, and reached for the handle. But then she saw something on the table. Another cup of the sweet drink. Still warm. Next to it, a small note, written in shaky human letters. Please stay. It read, You are safe. Her hand shook as she held the cup. No one had ever told her she was safe before. She sat down, slowly, quietly. Unsure what to do next, she didn't know his name. And he didn't know hers, but tonight he had given her something more important than a name. He gave her a place, even if only for one night, and somehow that made her feel human again. Morning. Light crept in through the broken blinds. The soft hum of the city above was like a distant song. Luma sat quietly on the edge of the bed. Staring at her hands, the blanket was still wrapped around her shoulders, and the cup of warm drink sat empty on the table beside her. He was still asleep on the floor. Curled under a thin old blanket, his coat folded as a pillow. He didn't snore, didn't move, just breathed slow and calm. She could have run, could have left without a sound, but she didn't want to. Not yet. The room smelled like steam, dust, and something sweet. A small pot was cooking on the stove now, and it wasn't her who started it. He must have set it on a timer before he slept. Why would someone do that for a stranger? She looked around the room. Everything was old, second-hand, or found in junkyards, but it was clean, organized, and warm. There were books stacked in a corner, and a photo stuck to the wall. A woman holding a baby, both smiling. She heard a yawn behind her. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes and stretching his back. Morning, he said, his voice rough but gentle. You didn't run away? She turned her head and shrugged. I didn't know where to go. She said softly. He smiled a little, got up, and went to check the pot. Porridge, he said. Not fancy, but warm. He poured 2 bowls and handed one to her. She hesitated, then took it. The first bite burned her tongue slightly, but she didn't care. It was food, real food, not trash or leftover scraps. Her eyes filled with tears again, but she hid them this time, after a few bites. He sat on a crate beside the table, watching her. What's your name? He asked again. She looked down, shaking her head. No name. She whispered, I don't have one. He tilted his head, thinking, well, I can't keep calling you hey or you, he said with a soft laugh. She stared at him quietly, unsure what to say. How about Luma? He asked, means light, in one of the old Earth languages. Luma, she repeated, slowly tasting the sound. It felt soft, warm. Like a blanket wrapped around her nameless life. She nodded. Yes, she said. Luma is fine. He smiled wider this time. Well, Luma, he said, I'm Kale. Kale. She had never heard that name before. It didn't sound like a soldier's name or a merchant's. It sounded ... Kind. They finished breakfast in silence, but it wasn't an awkward silence. It was peaceful, like neither of them needed to talk right away. She watched him fix a small panel near the door, his hands steady and rough from years of work. He didn't ask her for anything, not her body, not her story. He just let her be there. But she still didn't understand why. What do you want from me? She asked suddenly. Her voice was sharp, her body tense, ready to run. Kale turned slowly and looked at her, confused. Nothing, he said. You looked cold, hungry and scared. So I helped. No one helps for free, she said, her voice trembling. People buy, they trade, they take, but they don't give. Kale sat down. Serious now. You're right, he said. Most don't. I used to be like that too, until someone helped me once. No questions, no price. That one act changed my life. So now, I try to do the same. Luma looked at him, unsure if she believed him, but something in his eyes told her he wasn't lying. Still, she couldn't trust this. Not fully. Not yet. I can leave, she said, standing slowly. I don't want to cause trouble. You're not causing trouble. Kale said firmly, You're welcome to stay, at least for now. I have an old job at the lower docks. I'll be gone during the day, but you can stay here. He picked up a small card and placed it on the table. Door only opens. With this chip, he said, take it. If you want to come back. She stared at the chip, then at him. You trust me? She asked, voice low. He nodded, enough to give you a chance. Luma didn't know what to say. Her hand reached out and picked up the chip, her fingers shaking. This wasn't just plastic and code. It was a symbol, a key, a door someone wanted. Her to walk through. For a long moment, she just stood there. Then she whispered, thank you, Kale. He gave her a small smile. Then grabbed his coat and headed for the door. I'll be back after sundown, he said. Stay safe, Luma. And then he was gone. She stood there alone, holding the key in one hand and her bowl in the other. She didn't run, she didn't steal. She just sat back down, her mind full of questions and feelings she didn't know how to handle. For the first time, someone saw her not as a thing, not as property, but as a person, as Luma, and that changed everything again. Kale had left, the door shut behind him with a soft click. Luma stood in the quiet room, her hands still holding the small keycard. For a while, she didn't move. She just stared at the chipped metal floor, the old blanket, and the half-empty bowl of porridge on the table. This wasn't a dream. He didn't lock the door, didn't threaten her, didn't demand anything. He left her in his home with warmth, food, and safety. Why? She had never been alone in a place that felt safe before. Usually, when she was alone, it meant danger was coming, or that someone was already watching her from the shadows. But this room felt different. It wasn't fancy, but it felt real. Honest. She walked around slowly, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. The walls were patched with scrap metal and wires. But Kale had added small touches, a faded cloth hanging like a curtain, a hand-drawn star map above the bed, a cracked mug holding dry flowers. Little things, soft things, things people added when they were building a life, not just surviving. She found herself in front of the mirror. The glass was old and chipped, but it showed her reflection clearly enough. Her blue skin looked pale and thin, her silver hair still messy, even after the wash, but her silver eyes, they looked less afraid today. Luma, she whispered to her reflection. It felt strange to say her name, but not bad. Soft, like a song she used to know, but forgot. She found a small box under the bed. Inside were old shirts and clean socks. She picked one shirt, too big for her but soft, and pulled it over her shoulders. It smelled like Kale's room metal, heat, and something like cinnamon. She hugged herself in the shirt, feeling strange and warm inside. Hours passed. The room stayed quiet. Outside, she could hear the city distant engines, loudspeakers, boots on metal stairs, but no one knocked. No one screamed her name. No one dragged her out. This silence felt like peace, not fear. She explored the cabinets, careful not to break anything. There was food, simple packets and jars, but real, not stolen, not rotten, not bought with pain. She made another cup of the sweet drink he gave her. It was thick and creamy, like melted bread. She sat by the window and sipped it slowly, watching the clouds move outside the station walls. That's when she heard the knock. Soft, quick too. Taps. Her heart stopped. She froze, staring at the door, panic rushing through her chest. It wasn't Kale. He said he wouldn't be back until sundown. So, who was it? She didn't move, didn't speak. Another knock came, a little louder. Her hand reached for the metal stick Kale kept beside the bed, maybe for emergencies. She held it tight, breath held, body tense. Then a voice, soft and shaky. Please. Is this Kale's place? Luma frowned. The voice wasn't angry, wasn't male. She stepped closer to the door, not opening it yet. Who are you? She asked through the metal. I'm Mira, the voice said. Kale helps me sometimes. I just needed food, not trouble, I swear. Luma waited. Kale never said anything about someone else. Still, the voice sounded scared, like hers used to sound. She opened the panel next to the door and looked through the tiny camera. Outside stood a small alien girl, maybe 13, wearing oversized boots and a blanket around her shoulders. She looked dirty, hungry, and freezing. Luma hesitated. This could be a trick. But her heart said otherwise. She pressed the door release. It slid open slowly, revealing the girl fully. Mira stared at Luma with wide purple eyes. "You're not Kale," she said, stepping back a little. "No," Luma replied. "He's gone till night. But he said I could come if I was ever in trouble." Luma nodded once, then stepped aside. "Come in," she said quietly. Mira stepped in slowly, eyes darting around the room like a frightened animal. Luma gave her the second blanket, poured her a drink, and sat quietly across from her. They didn't talk for a while. Mira ate, shivering, and slowly calmed down. "Kale helped you too?" she asked finally. Luma nodded. "He gave me a name," she whispered. Mira smiled softly. "I never had a name either," she said. "I just picked one from a storybook Kale gave me." That night, when Kale returned, he found both girls asleep on the bed, Luma holding the empty cup, and Mira curled beside her under the blanket. He didn't say anything, just smiled, placed a third cup on the table, and sat down quietly on the floor. Luma wasn't just a stranger anymore. She was a part of something now. Not property, not lost, not forgotten, but chosen. And that changed everything again. Kale watched the two girls sleeping. Luma on the left, Mira on the right, both wrapped in the same blanket. Their breathing was slow and soft. The old room had never felt this full before. It had always been quiet, alone, a place for rest after long shifts. But now, it felt like something else, like the beginning of something bigger. He didn't wake them. Instead, he sat by the window, eating cold porridge and thinking he never meant for this to happen. He was just trying to do the right thing, one person at a time. But now, two strangers had turned his space into something new, something alive. Luma woke first, blinking slowly. She looked around, confused for a moment, then saw Kale and relaxed. "You're back," she whispered. "I didn't hear you come in." Kale gave a small nod. "You both looked like you needed sleep more than anything," he said. She glanced down at Mira, still snuggled close. "Who is she?" he asked gently. "Her name's Mira," Luma replied. "She said you helped her once." Kale nodded slowly. "She was just a child when I first saw her, trying to eat paint flakes off a storage wall. I gave her food and a blanket, but she never stayed long." "Same as me," Luma said quietly. "Maybe we're all running from something." Kale stood and walked to the stove. "I'll make more porridge," he said. "We'll figure things out after." By the time Mira woke, the room smelled like cinnamon again. The three of them sat at the table, no one speaking much, just eating. Luma glanced at Kale. She wanted to say thank you again, but the words didn't feel big enough. So she just smiled, and Kale smiled back. After breakfast, Kale reached into an old crate under the sink. He pulled out a thin datapad and slid it across the table to Luma. "What's this?" she asked. "A basic city map, station rules, and a few safe routes." He explained, "If you're staying here, you should know your way around. And there's one more thing," he said, pointing to the corner of the screen. "A job. Board Lorisk stuff, cleaning, sorting, package runs." Luma's hands trembled slightly as she held the datapad. "You think I can work?" she asked, her voice uncertain. "You can do whatever you want now." Kale said gently, "You're not owned, not hunted, not hidden." Mira leaned in, curious. "Can I help too?" she asked, eyes hopeful. Kale chuckled. "If you finish your drink without spilling it this time," he teased. Mira grinned, her cheeks turning purple with embarrassment. That day, Luma left the room for the first time with purpose. Kale gave her a worn cap and an old ID badge with a fake name. It wouldn't survive deep scans, but it would get her past the lower docks without trouble. She walked with careful steps, heart pounding in her chest. But no one stopped her, no one shouted, no one tried to take her. She walked through the station like she belonged. Her job. With simple organized crates in a dim storage unit, but to her, it felt like flying. She had direction, work, even if small. It was hers when she returned that evening. Her hands were sore and her back ached. But she smiled, really smiled. For the first time in years, Mira ran to her, waving a metal fork like a sword. "I cooked today," she said proudly. Luma looked at Kale, who nodded with a tired smile. "It was edible," he said with a laugh. Later that night, after Mira fell asleep, Luma sat near the window with Kale. The sky above the station was dark, filled with drifting ships and blinking stars. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "Really?" Kale leaned back, arms crossed. "Maybe I'm tired of watching people fall apart while others walk by," he said. "Maybe someone once saved me too, and I never got to repay them. Maybe I just believe that everyone deserves one real chance." Luma looked down, her voice quiet. "I wasn't supposed to stay," she whispered. "I was supposed to survive one night, then disappear again, but you didn't." Kale said, "You stayed, and now you're building something new." She nodded slowly, but deep in her chest, fear still lingered. Not of Kale, not of Myra, but of the world outside, the ones who remembered her, the ones who wanted her back, the ones who saw her as property. "I'm scared," she admitted. Kale looked at her and said, "Good. Fear means you're alive. And it means you have something to lose now." That night, Luma couldn't sleep. She sat by the door, holding the chip Kale gave her. She had a place now, a name, even hope. But she also had a past, and she knew the past never stayed. Buried for long, she was no longer just surviving. She was living, but the galaxy wasn't finished with her yet. And soon, the door she feared most would come knocking. Luma had just returned from the lower docks. Her fingers were dirty, her back sore, but she smiled anyway. Kale had repaired the old heater, and Mira had drawn a stick figure family on the wall. One looked like Luma, another like Kale, and a small one with big eyes had to be Mira. It was crude, childish, and warm. It made the small metal room feel like home. Kale handed her a warm drink. The usual sweet mix. She sat down, stretching her legs. Mira bounced beside her, full of energy. "I cleaned all the plates today," she said proudly. "Only broke one." Kale raised an eyebrow, but Luma laughed. She looked at Mira and thought, so this is what a real life feels like. Not perfect, not rich, but safe, honest, but peace. Never lasted long in places like this, especially not for people like her. Later that evening, while Kale was out fixing a broken drone engine, Luma stepped outside to throw out trash. She walked down the stairs, quiet and careful. She had learned to keep her head low, her ears open, but she didn't hear him coming until it was too late. A voice called from the shadows. "Blue girl," she froze, her breath caught in her throat. She turned slowly and saw him, a tall man in a black coat. Face half hidden by metal implants, but the left side of his face had a long, ugly, scar-jagged, angry, unforgettable. Her blood turned cold. She knew him. His name was Rosk. He used to work for the debt syndicate, the ones who bought and sold lives. He was there the day she was taken. He was the one who marked her as usable, like she was meat, not a person. "You've been hiding well," he said, stepping closer. "Almost didn't recognize you with clothes on." Luma stepped back, her hands shaking. "I'm not yours anymore," she whispered. "No," he said, grinning. "But you." "Oh." and someone always collects. She turned to run, but two more men stepped out from behind a wall. Blocked her path. Rosk tilted his head. Come. Quiet, and I'll be kind. Make noise, and I'll break you like before. Luma's heart pounded. Her mind screamed to run, to fight, to cry, but something inside her had changed since the alley. She wasn't the same girl anymore. She took one step back, then yelled, Mira, lock the door. Her voice echoed through the narrow passage. Rosk lunged at her, but Luma dropped the trash bin and ducked. She kicked his leg and scrambled toward the stairwell. He grabbed her ankle and pulled hard. She screamed, falling against the metal stairs, skin tearing on the edge. Then a loud thud, followed by a crack. Kale, he was back. He slammed a wrench into one of the men's shoulders, sending him to the ground. Kale's eyes were burning with something Luma had never seen before. Fury. Rosk turned, growling, You're helping her? He spat. She's not even your kind. Kale didn't answer. He punched Rask in the gut. Then grabbed Luma and pulled her up. They ran, Mira already standing at the open door, eyes wide with terror. As soon as they were inside, Kale slammed. The lock shut and slid the steel bar into place. Luma was bleeding, her arm scraped badly. Kale grabbed a towel and pressed it to the wound. Myra stood frozen, tears running down her cheeks. Who were they? She whispered, Old ghosts, Luma said, her voice shaking. They think they still own me. Kale's hands were gentle but firm. You're not theirs, he said. Not ever again. That night, no one slept. Kale sat by the door, a tool in one hand. Eyes watching the shadows through the window, Mira curled up beside Luma, holding her tight. Luma stared at the ceiling, her body aching, her heart even more so. She had known the past would come. She just didn't expect it so soon or to feel this afraid again, but she also hadn't expected someone to fight for her, to stand between her and the pain, to choose her. We can't stay here. Kale said quietly, They'll come back with more. Luma nodded. I don't want to run forever. She whispered, I want to live. Kale looked at her, his face softening. Then we'll find a place where no one knows your face. No chains, no buyers, no scars. Mira nodded, wiping her eyes. I'll go wherever you go, she said. Voice small, but brave. And in that moment, Luma realized she wasn't just being saved anymore. She was part of something real. Something worth protecting. They were her people now, and she would never go back to being just a body again. Her past had found her, but so had her future, and now she wasn't running alone. She was running toward something. Something that finally felt like hers. The air was thick with smoke, not from fire, but from engines, exhaust, and the burning scent of old metal. The underbelly of the city station was alive with noise, cargo lifts groaning, pipes hissing, and alarms echoing in the distance. Kale moved fast through the maze of tunnels. Mira held his hand tightly, trying to keep up. Luma ran beside them. Her ribs aching, her arms still sore from the fight with Rask, but she didn't complain. She couldn't. There was no time. Behind them, the Syndicate's men were coming. Not just Rask this time. More of them, more faces from her past. More people who believed she still belonged in chains. They had scanned her image, traced her badge. Now they knew her face. Her name, her location. There was no hiding anymore, only running. This way, Kale shouted. Turning left down a narrow shaft, the walls were wet with oil, lights flickering. Above them, they passed old machines and storage crates. The heat from nearby reactors made the air shimmer like fire. Mira stumbled, but Luma grabbed her before she fell. We're almost there, Kale called back. Emergency vent corridor. Leads straight to the outer freight decks. Where are we going? Luma asked between breaths. To someone who owes me. Kale said, a pilot. They reached a steel hatch, half-rusted, with a red warning light blinking above it. Cale typed in a code. The panel sparked. He hit it again with the base of his palm. Finally, the door hissed open with a loud screech. Inside was darkness. No lights, no comfort, just a long tunnel full of echoing sounds. They stepped inside and the door slammed shut behind them. Luma reached for the wall, steadying herself. Mira was breathing fast, afraid. Cale knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" She nodded quickly, even though tears were in her eyes. "I'm brave," she whispered. "Like you and Luma." Luma smiled, despite everything. "Yes, you are," she said. "Braver than most adults I've met." They walked through the dark passage, guided only by the soft blue light on Cale's wrist device. The floor trembled under their feet, every few seconds massive engines rumbling nearby. Every time they turned a corner, Luma expected someone to jump out. Every noise made her heart skip. Then they heard footsteps, fast and heavy, from behind. The syndicate had followed them into the tunnel. Cale looked around, eyes wide. "There's a maintenance crawlway ahead," he said. "We'll take it and lose 'em." They sprinted, turning down a smaller path that dropped into a grated floor tunnel. Mira jumped down first, then Luma, then Cale. Just as the footsteps grew louder, they slipped out of sight, crawling now, elbows scraping. Metal, breath ragged. The tunnel opened into a lower bay, filled with broken drones and storage crates. Cale pointed to a small hangar platform across the open space. "That's it," he said. "Dock 17. My friend's ship should be there." They ran across the platform, feet echoing loud against the steel. Luma felt eyes watching them. Security bots. Cameras, maybe worse. They didn't care anymore. They couldn't stop. A ship came into views. Maul, gray. Patched with rust, but alive, a figure stood at the base of the ramp, arms crossed. It was a tall woman in a red coat. Goggles pushed onto her forehead. "Cale," she said. "I thought you were dead." "Not yet," he replied. "But if you don't open that ramp fast, we might be." She looked at Luma, then at Mira, then back at Cale. "I don't fly for free," she said sharply. Cale reached into his coat and tossed her a small metal cube. "This is everything I have," he said. "Plus a favor you can name later." The pilot caught the cube, glanced at it, then turned to the ship. "Get in," she said. "Now." Luma picked up Mira and ran up the ramp. Cale followed. The door hissing shut behind them, just as shouting echoed through the hangar. Blaster shots rang out, sparks flying across the metal walls. But the ship roared to life, lifting off before the syndicate could reach them. They were in the air, then gone off the deck, out of the bay, into the open lanes of the sky. Luma sat down hard on the floor, holding Mira tightly. Cale leaned back against the wall, covered in sweat and oil. The pilot grinned from the cockpit. "You've got problems, Cale," she said. "But lucky for you, I like trouble." For the first time in days, Luma allowed herself to breathe. Not fully, not deeply, but just enough to feel like she wasn't about to be dragged back into a nightmare. She looked at Mira, sleeping now in her lap, then at Cale, who was watching the stars through the ship's window. "We made it." "She?" whispered. Cale nodded. "For now, where are we going?" She asked. "Somewhere new," he said. "Somewhere you can choose who you want to be." And as the stars stretched before them, Luma knew she was no longer running from her past. She was flying toward her future. The chains were broken, the scars were real, but now she had people. And a ship heading toward something better. For the first time ever, freedom was no longer a dream, which hers. The stars drifted past the window, endless, silent, beautiful. Luma sat in the small sleeping pod, her legs crossed, arms wrapped around Mira. The girl snored softly, her face calm for once. Cale was up in the cockpit, speaking to the pilot, making plans for the next step. But Luma stayed back, holding Mira like she was the last soft thing in the galaxy. They had made it, escaped the station, left the syndicate behind, at least for now. But Luma knew freedom wasn't a place. It was a choice, and she hadn't truly made it yet. She got up, slowly, careful not to wake Myra. Her arms still hurt. But the pain was clean now, bandaged and healing. She stepped out into the corridor, the ship humming softly around her. Kale stood at the far end, staring at a display, screen maps, signals, alerts. Found anything? She asked, her voice gentle. Kale turned, surprised. A few places, he said. Outposts. Planets no one watches too closely. Places where no one asks questions. She nodded, looking at the screen. So, what now? She asked. Do we keep running? Kale leaned on the console, arms crossed. I don't know, he said honestly, but I think it's time you decided what you want. Luma looked down, her hands clenched tightly. I used to think I didn't want anything, she whispered. Just to be warm, safe, alive. But now? She looked up, her silver eyes glowing under the ship's soft light. Now I want to live. Kale smiled, not wide, but true. Then we'll build something. He said, start small, make it real. You're not just someone I helped in an alley. You're Luma now. She took a deep breath. The name still felt new, like a borrowed coat, but it also felt earned. I want to help people like me, she said. The ones with no names, no voices. Even if we can only help one or two. Kale nodded slowly. That's more than most do. Suddenly, Mira walked in, rubbing her eyes. You're both talking like old people, she muttered. Luma laughed. Pulling her close. Go back to sleep, she said softly. No, Myra whispered. I had a dream. We had a house on a green hill. There were flowers and a cat. Luma blinked. Tears threatening to fall. Kale knelt beside Mira. We'll find that hill someday, he said. Maybe not soon, but someday. Mira nodded sleepily and leaned into Luma's side. For a long while, the three of them just stood there. Not running, not hiding, just existing, together. Later that night, the pilot came to them. I've got one more jump in me, she said. After that, you're on your own. Where does the next jump lead? Kale asked. The pilot handed him a small device. Old farming colony, she said. Planet's dead to most trade routes, but it's clean, safe, quiet. People settle there when they don't want to be found. Kale looked at Luma. She didn't answer with words, she just gave a slow nod. They landed the next day. The planet was dry but green, wind blowing over wide plains. An old settlement stood on the hilltop, half abandoned but repairable. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs now. The pilot left without a goodbye. Kale watched her ship vanish into the clouds, then turned and smiled at Luma and Mira. Welcome home, he said. Over the next weeks, they worked together. Kale fixed the roof. Luma planted seeds. Myra painted the old walls with bright colors. At night, they sat around a heater, eating soup and sharing stories. Luma told them about the stars she used to dream of. Myra made up songs about cats and hills. Kale built a small radio tower from scraps. Just in case, one evening, Luma stood outside, staring up at the sky. She thought about the night she met Kale, the night she offered her body just for a place to sleep. She had been nothing then, a nameless, broken girl who thought no one would ever see her again. But someone did. He didn't take her. He gave her a name, a home, and something more powerful than safety. He gave her a future. Now, she had a family. Not by blood, but by choice, and in a galaxy where everyone had a price. They had chosen her for nothing, no credits, no trade, no reason but kindness. She closed her eyes and whispered to the wind, I am Luma, and for the first time. She believed it completely. She walked back inside, where Kale was fixing a broken chair and Mira was giggling under a blanket fort. And as the door closed behind her, she knew she didn't belong to anyone. Not anymore. She belonged here, with them, forever.